French farmers say they are being pushed to the limit, and protests have spread across multiple regions. In the eastern region of Saone-et-Loire, local officials and French media reported tractors blocking major routes, causing major delays. The protests near the city of Macon targeted key routes, including sections of the busy RCEA highway. Local authorities urged motorists to avoid the area. Some protest groups say they may keep pressure on officials unless policies change. This is not an isolated action. It is part of a growing national movement that reflects deep frustration among French agricultural producers, frustration over disease control policies, frustration over trade deals, and frustration over what farmers and some unions argue is the accelerating decline of small farms. The images from Saone-et-Loire tell the story. Tractors lined up across highways, farmers standing firm beside their vehicles, traffic backed up for kilometers as one of France's key transport corridors faced significant disruption. The protesters set up roadblocks along multiple routes, creating disruption during one of the busiest travel periods of the year. For the farmers, that disruption is precisely the point. They want to be seen, they want to be heard, and they want action. The mobilization reflects a sector that feels pushed to the breaking point by policies imposed from Paris and Brussels without regard for the realities on the ground. The immediate trigger for the protest is the government's response to lumpy skin disease, a viral infection that has affected cattle herds across several French regions. France's agriculture ministry says its rules require whole herd culls when an outbreak is confirmed, a policy unions call excessive. For farmers who have spent years, sometimes generations, building their livestock operations, watching their animals taken away is devastating. The disease itself is serious, but farmers argue the government's response has been heavy-handed, poorly managed, and inadequately compensated. Farmers say the compensation measures offered by the government are slow to arrive and inadequate when they do. While bureaucrats process paperwork, farmers face immediate financial crisis. The sanitary restrictions have disrupted operations, prevented sales, and created cascading economic damage. Small and medium-sized producers, the backbone of French rural agriculture, have been particularly hard hit. For many, the compensation offered does not come close to covering their losses, and the delays in payment have pushed some operations to the brink of survival. The burden falls disproportionately on small and medium-sized farms. Large industrial operations have the financial reserves to weather disruption. Family farms do not. These are producers who operate on thin margins in the best of times. When disease strikes, when culling is mandated, when compensation is delayed, they have no buffer. They face immediate crisis. The protesters in Saone-et-Loire represent this agricultural France, the France of family farms, local production, and traditional methods. They see their way of life under threat from multiple directions at once, but the cattle culling is only part of the story. The broader anger is directed at the EU-Mercosur trade agreement, a deal that French farmers see as a major threat to their industry. Nicolas Mayet, spokesperson for the Peasants Confederation of Saone-et-Loire, put it bluntly at the protest. He stated, "Of course the Confederation, all the unions, and all French farmers are against Mercosur. We cannot produce using highly developed standards to create quality products. And at the same time, we can't just sell German cars and import crap into our country. It's simply not possible." Mayet's statement captures the central grievance. French farmers operate under some of the strictest agricultural regulations in the world. EU standards govern everything from animal welfare to pesticide use to environmental impact. Meeting these standards costs money. It requires investment. It makes French agricultural products more expensive to produce. Farmers fear imports will not match EU standards, while EU officials say the deal includes safeguards and controls. From the farmer's perspective, this creates unfair competition designed to benefit other industries at agriculture's expense. Mayet's reference to German cars points to a widely held belief among French farmers that the Mercosur deal is primarily about opening South American markets for European industrial exports, particularly German automobiles, while agriculture pays the price. That is how many farmers frame it. Supporters of the deal argue it would boost EU exports and secure supply chains. But for protesters, the equation is clear. Industry gains, agriculture loses. The anger over cattle culling has been intensified by reports of police involvement in slaughter operations. French media reported gendarmes, French military police, here were present at farms during culling operations. For farmers, the sight of police arriving during these operations has been traumatic and infuriating. These are not criminals. These are food producers facing a disease outbreak, yet they feel they are being treated like threats to public order. Nicolas Mayet described the situation as escalating. Mayet's words at the protests were stark. He stated, "So violent. They're sending gendarmes to gas us. Is it really a total political blunder to gas the profession that earns the least money? The profession that feeds the French people? The profession that works the hardest? We are totally fed up. It really is a total political blunder." French media reported tear gas was used at some standoffs, and farmers say that deepened anger. For producers already facing economic devastation, being met with force has deepened the sense of betrayal. Mayet's question deserves consideration. Farmers say incomes are often low and unpredictable, especially for smaller operations. They do feed the French population. They do work extremely long hours under difficult conditions. And now they are being subjected to police presence, reported use of tear gas, and forced culling, while simultaneously being told their industry will face increased competition from imports. From their perspective, the government has made them enemies rather than partners. That is what Mayet means by political blunder. The placards attached to tractors during the protests captured the dual nature of farmers' anger. One slogan in particular has become a symbol of the movement: "Bring down Mercosur, but not our cows." The message connects the two grievances: the immediate crisis of cattle culling and the long-term threat of the trade deal. Farmers want their animals protected from disease control measures they consider excessive, and they want their industry protected from trade policies they consider destructive. Both demands share a common theme. Farmers want their government to prioritize French agriculture over other interests. The protest in Saone-et-Loire is part of a wider national movement. Agricultural unions across France have mobilized, organizing actions in multiple regions. In Angers, protesters gathered with a cow statue painted in French flag colors, a symbol of national agricultural identity under threat. Demonstrators marched past Christmas markets, rallied outside government buildings, and made their presence impossible to ignore. The coordination between different unions and the Peasants Confederation, Coordination Rurale, and others reflects the depth of anger across the agricultural sector. This is not a fringe movement. This is mainstream French farming expressing serious concerns. The protest in Angers heard from Yvon Riotteau, a cattle farmer who put the current crisis in historical perspective. Riotteau stated, "In 20 years, there's no agriculture left. This leaves roughly the same number of farmers to disappear, that it has been gone for 20 years. Today, there are 370,000 farmers left. 20 years ago, there were 750,000. Official statistics show the farm sector has been shrinking for years, with fewer farms and fewer people working in agriculture. The remaining farmers see Mercosur as potentially accelerating that decline." Riotteau's assessment of French political leadership was harsh, but reflects widespread sentiment among farmers. He stated, "We are told to be responsible, but we are governed by incompetence, by reckless people who brought France toward failure." This is not just anger at one policy or one minister. This is a comprehensive indictment of French governance over decades. Governments of left and right that have, in farmers' view, consistently prioritized other interests over agriculture. Despite farmer opposition across Europe, the EU-Mercosur deal continues to move forward. The European Commission says it has already sent proposals for signature and conclusion to the Council process. Reuters and other outlets reported European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen was expected to travel to Brazil as part of planned signing talks. The deal aims to liberalize trade between the EU and South American countries, Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay. For European industry, the deal opens new markets. For European farmers, it opens doors to competition they say will damage them. The French government, facing massive domestic pressure, has asked the EU to postpone signing the agreement. Paris wants stronger protections for European farmers built into the deal. But French farmers are skeptical that delay means anything more than delay. They doubt that meaningful protections will be added. They believe the deal will ultimately be approved regardless of their opposition. The question is whether France will actually block the agreement or whether Paris will eventually accept it despite farmer protests. Tony Marboeuf, president of Coordination Rurale of Maine-et-Loire, spoke at the Angers protest. His message reflected deep skepticism about EU promises. He explained the symbolic meaning of the protest. It's symbolic. It's not only about the lumpy skin disease, it's an homage to the animals that got culled, to show support toward the farmers in the South affected by this disease, but also for the death of our agriculture that will be impacted by the Mercosur Treaty and the unfair imports, even in the EU. The protest, Marboeuf said, commemorates both the cattle already killed and the concerns about what Mercosur could mean for agriculture. On the question of whether EU promises to protect farmers can be trusted, Marboeuf was blunt. And he stated, "I'm not buying it. It's postponed only to be accepted. They will tell us about mirror measures and controls, but it won't last." Mirror measures refers to requirements that imported products meet the same standards as European products. In theory, this would level the playing field. In practice, farmers doubt these measures will be enforced or that they will last once the deal is in place. The pattern, as farmers see it, is familiar. Promises are made to secure approval, then quietly abandoned once opposition fades. For French farmers, the stakes are significant. They see Mercosur as a major threat to their industry's viability. Cheaper imports could undercut their prices. Consumers might choose lower-cost products. Farms could close. Rural communities could see further decline. The agricultural knowledge and traditions built over generations could diminish. That is the future farmers fear if Mercosur is approved without adequate protections. And they are determined to fight it, with tractors on roads, protests in city squares, and pressure on politicians who must ultimately decide. The question now is whether that pressure will be enough. Supporters in several EU capitals argue the pact is strategically important, while farmer groups say agriculture is being sidelined. As tractors block highways and farmers stand firm, the answer remains uncertain. But one thing is clear. French farmers are making their voices heard. They will fight for their cows, their farms, and their future, even if it means significant disruption to make their point.